Welcome to the Orchid Basics series presented by Ohio Orchids. Today's episode, we're going to talk about what's in a name. Before we continue, all content in this presentation may be used without permission for any endeavor focused on educating the public about orchids. All other inquiries can be made directly to Ohio Orchids. Okay, let's get started. What is in an orchid name? Well, all orchid names start with the genus name. It's the first part. Unfortunately, in the world of orchids, there's more than 1,000 names for genus and more being added every year. But it always starts with a capital letter. Many times you're going to see it abbreviated, though. We'll take a look at some abbreviations later on. The second part of the name is the species name or the grex, or otherwise known as the hybrid. So it's either going to be a species or a hybrid. It's always the second part. Species names always start with a lowercase letter. Hybrid names always start with a capital letter. So that's a tip-off to you. However, in nature, sometimes natural hybrids take place, and if this happens to be one of those plants, then you'll see a lowercase x prior to the hybrid name. Sometimes it starts in lowercase, sometimes upper. It's a little confusing, I know. The third part is the cultivar. It's also known as the clonal name, and it's always enclosed with single quotes. This word is uncontrolled unless an award designation follows, meaning it's been officially recognized and recorded by a sanctioned organization. Now, all that being said, you'll find a lot of inconsistencies in labels, and it's going to require some detective work sometimes to figure out exactly what you have. At any rate, if it's a recorded name, cultivar name, then there's going to be some kind of designation, and you'll see words like AOS, TOGA, and other things. For the most part, we're going to focus on the American Orchid Society Awards. Okay, this is probably more information than what you might be interested in, but it is important, and the important part about this is not the number of points, but the graduated designation of these. As you look at your collection and you look at plants on the sales table, this is a little guide that helps you determine, I think, the quality of the plant you are buying. As the number of points increase and the designation increases, that tells you that as recognized by registered judges with the organization, you have a much better flower or plant. First of all, let's look at quality. It's awarded to a plant strictly based on the quality of the flowers. Notation stays with the plant, divisions, clones, or seedlings. And it's based on a 100-point scale. So you could see that there's 3 designations here: HCC, AM, FCC. It's strictly assigned based on the number of points that were garnered when this particular plant was judged. When you see this on a label, as we'll see later on, it indicates to you a higher level of quality and theoretically a more desirable plant. Now, if we move on to cultural, cultural is awarded to a plant based on the quality of flowers and the plant and floriferousness. However, this award goes to the grower and not the plant, meaning that designation doesn't stick with seedlings, clones, divisions, etc. However, you may find some plants for sale or in your collection that may have this designation on the label. That means that this plant at one time was considered a fine specimen for the particular kind of orchid. If you want more information on AOS awards, go out to their website where they have good cultural and more award information, and it's publicly available. Okay, let's dig in and actually look at some real life examples. So in this case, if you get enamored with my cool photographs, that's intentional so you don't pay attention to my words. But at any rate, this is a Paphiopedilum, Malapoense. And you can see here that it's a Paphiopedilum, that's the genus, it's capitalized, and its accepted abbreviation is PAF. You can see that Malapoense is lowercase, and that indicates that it's a species, meaning it grows in nature somewhere, probably in Southeast Asia. At any rate, you could see this is a properly laid out label. On we go. This is a hybrid. You can see that the genus name is Catasetum, abbreviated CTSM. In this case, this is a hybrid of Catasetum Chuck Taylor, wow, by Catasetum cliberianum, SVO. In this case, though, with a little detective work, I found out that it actually is a registered hybrid, and it is called Catasetum double down. Now, in the world of botanical registrations, the name doesn't change depending on how this is listed. So Catasetum Chuck Taylor by cliberianum is exactly double down, and so is Catasetum cliberianum by Chuck Taylor. Also, please note that this is a cross of two very specific cultivars, the WOW and the SVO. There are lots of different varieties of Chuck Taylor and a lot of different varieties of cliberianum. So this gives you some insight, perhaps as you get into hybrids, why you get different colors and forms. You can also see by looking at my label, I work my labels hard. And you can see I've added the actual hybrid name, because I can't remember it, in permanent ink. I also catalog my plants. This happens to be Catasetum 11 in my collection. And you can also see this is the last time I repotted it, which is a very strong recommendation for me to you, because there is no way I can remember that kind of information. On we go. Okay, this is a beautiful Brassia hybrid in the Oncidium alliance, and it is called a Miltassia, abbreviated MTSSA. The hybrid name is Shalab. Now, in this case of this plant, we don't know what parents specifically went into this, but we can go to some internet references and we can find out what two hybrid plants or hybrid and species plants went into making this cross recorded as Shalab. In this case, though, I have a very specific form of Miltassia Shalab, and it is called cultivar Tolkien. And the reason I know that is because the designated after is AMAOS. Remember, we talked about flower quality. AM is in the middle of the awarded scale. It's an award of merit, and you can see it's recognized and have been awarded by the American Orchid Society. So in this case, if you have a Miltassia, Shalab, cultivar Tolkien, they are all presumed to be the same plant, divisions of the plant, or clones of the plant. So if your label does not show the AM designation, it is okay for you to add that. It also means that if you were to buy this plant, you are likely getting a very high quality plant, and you can see by the form on these flowers and the coloration and patterning, this is a very fine plant and needs to be in your collection. Okay, finally, let's take a look at this one. This is a Phragmipedium, one of the varieties of slipper orchids. And you can see what a beautiful flower this is. This is hybrid Nicole Tower. Now, as you can also see by looking at my tag, I had to look this up too, and I marked it in permanent ink. This is a cross between Longifolium, Black as Night, by De Lysandroy. It's a cross of two species, which we call a primary hybrid, meaning it is the cross of two species. At any rate, we know that this cross was actually made with Longifolium Black as Night, which distinguishes it from Nicole Towers made with other forms of Longifolium. What that does is it tells us that some of the markations, size, coloration comes from black as night, which may differentiate it from other forms of Nicole Tower. If you'd like more information about this, I recommend that you go to the International Orchid Register. It's hosted by the Royal Horticultural Society, which is actually the official registrar of the American Orchid Society. It's a public website. It's way too long for me and complicated for me to list here, so just go out and do an internet search on International Orchid Register. You can look up your plant names. You can determine what the parents are. You can determine whether it's a species or a hybrid. It's very informative. And I do this frequently as if I add a plant to my collection that I'm not really familiar with. Also, don't be afraid to go out to the American Orchid Society website. There is a lot of great cultural information and also information about awards and processes. Finally, the Mid-America Orchid Congress is a fabulous website where you can actually find out more about genus names for orchids, what they're composed of, and also abbreviations. If you go under the Judging menu tab, you will find a couple documents that list these. So happy orchiding from Ohio Orchids.